Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back to another video. It is the player ratings. Everton 3, Bournemouth 0 yesterday. Apologies that this video wasn't up yesterday. I'd done the instant match reaction and I thought, you know what, I want to go home, spend some time with the family, have a chill, have a relaxation, enjoy a Saturday evening where Everton have won a game of football, because as Evertonians we don't get many of them anymore. We don't get many Saturday evenings where we can just sit down, chill, relax and enjoy the night because Everton have won a game. So I thought, you know what, we'll do that and then we'll do the player ratings tomorrow. So I apologise about that. It is the player ratings. A fantastic performance by Everton yesterday. 3-0 win at Bournemouth. A really comfortable win as well. Like I said yesterday, I can't remember the last time Everton was so comfortable in a game of football. I know we beat Brighton away last year, but there were moments in that game where we were a little bit tense. We obviously had moments in the Brentford game and the Villa game where we were tense this season. But you have to think back to sort of Crystal Palace at Goodison last October, so a year ago, where we were that comfortable in a game and we were, you know, that controlling, and we never really looked in any trouble at any point. And it was nice. It was exactly what was needed yesterday. I'm sick and tired, and I'm sure all of you are, of turning up at Goodison Park and, you know, seeing Everton lose or seeing us putting in, you know, poor performance after poor performance. And again, as I said yesterday, fair play to the manager. I think the decision to have James, Garner and Onana in the midfield, even if it was a forced one because of Garner Gay's injury, it worked really, really well. And yeah, I thought it was a really top performance. So we'll get straight into it then. Jordan Pickford, yeah, not a lot to do in terms of saves. Bournemouth, as I said, weren't particularly in the game very much from the first minute to the last minute, really. They didn't trouble Jordan much. They didn't give him much to do. I thought his kicking was a little bit 50-50. At times it was good, at times it was bad. But, you know, again, ultimately, I think Jordan's a little bit like that, isn't he? Sometimes he can play a 40, 50, 60-yard ball pinpoint onto somebody's foot, and the next minute he can put one into the stands. I'm going to give him a 6.5. And that's not because I thought he was poor or because I don't think he played well. I just don't think he had an awful lot to do. He wasn't called into action very much. He did make a really, really good save. At one point, I think we were 2-0 up and they went on one-on-one with goal, and he made a really, really good save to keep it, you know, to keep it his clean sheet. But, you know, we deserved it yesterday. Our first clean sheet of the season, of course. First clean sheet at Goodison for a number of months since we last played Bournemouth, ironically. So, yeah, you know, really decent performance by Jordan, but ultimately not an awful lot to do, so I'm going to give him a 6.5. Vitali Mykolenko, I'm going to give him a 7.5. I'll give him a 7. I'll give him a 7. I thought he was really good yesterday. Again, not a massive amount to do. Bournemouth didn't really have much of the ball in terms of going forward. Every bit of the ball they had was sort of in the midfield and out of the back. And, you know, he didn't really push too much, so he didn't have an awful lot of defending to do. He had a couple of bits of one-on-one defending to do, which I thought he'd done really well. He obviously put the cross in for Jack Harrison's goal, which, you know, again, although it ended up being cleared by the goalkeeper, it was actually a really good cross into the box. So, yeah, personally, I don't think Vitali has had a poor game since he's come back into the squad. I know some people will say, oh, yeah, but he's very basic, he's very limited. But ultimately, if he can absolutely perfect being a basic limited left back, then, you know, he will be a good addition to the squad. Again, I understand fully in this day and age you need players that can go forward, that are more creative, that, you know, are better going forward. And I get that. We've gone from Leighton Baines, who is one of the best left backs of all time, Luca Dean, who was really good going forward, to a player that is very basic. But previously, he wasn't performing even at a basic level. He was poor. He was worse than that. Whereas now, I think he's had a few good games on the spin, and I think yesterday he didn't really put a foot wrong either. So yeah, he's getting a 7. Jared Branthwaite, going to give him a 7.5. Another really, really solid performance by Jared this yesterday. Again, not a massive amount to do. It goes without saying, because defensively we weren't put under much pressure. But what he had to do, he done really, really well. He looked big. He looked strong. He looked dominant. He looked like he was a leader. He looked like he's really starting to come into his own now. And don't get me wrong, I think he's looked good in all of his previous games as well this season, but he really starts to look like he's settling in, and you know, he's ultimately, he's a starting centre-back for Everton now. He's not just a young kid that's being given an opportunity. He is one of the first names on the team sheet, and I think you could see that confidence in him yesterday. Tarkowski next to him equally, I'm going to give him a 7.5 as well. Again, not a huge amount to do, but the bits he had to do, he was called into action for. A couple of defensive mishaps with Jordan Pickford. There was a couple couple of moments where Jordan and him were verbally disagreeing, shall we say, with whatever, had just happened in the game. But I think generally he put in a really, really solid performance. So yeah, I'm going to give him a 7.5. Ashley Young, I'm going to give him a 6. Again, I've said this before and I'll say it again, I'm not sure why he's starting games of football for Everton. I think Nathan Patterson is coming off the back of, one of his best games in an Everton shirt a couple of weeks ago, and to be dropped for Ashley Young to come back in, I think was a little bit... I just didn't agree with that decision. Ashley Young obviously was absolutely terrible against Luton last week. He was better yesterday. Again, didn't have a massive amount to do, wasn't put under a massive amount of pressure. I think the difference between Luton and Bournemouth, I don't think there's much difference in terms of the quality of those sides, but I think Luton were seemingly much more confident. They wanted to have a go. They were getting at us, they were putting pressure on us, they were desperate to get something out of that game, whereas Bournemouth yesterday just didn't seem particularly interested, and maybe that's why Ashley Young looked a lot more comfortable. But yeah, again, I'm not just going to sit here and have a go at him and say, he was terrible, he was this and that for the sake of it. Everybody knows my opinions. I don't think Ashley Young should be in the starting 11 because I just don't think he's good enough, and I think Nathan Patterson can do a better job in there. However, I thought he was okay yesterday, so yeah, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He did get a yellow card within about the opening 30 seconds of the game, which is not ideal, but it is what it is. Moving into the midfield then, Dwight McNeil. I'm going to give Dwight McNeil an 8. I actually thought he was absolutely fantastic yesterday. I did, and I think he was a goal away, and I think I said this in the instant match reaction, he was a goal away from being a 10 out of 10 performance. It really, really was from Dwight McNeil. I thought he was everywhere, he was battling, he was winning the ball back in dangerous areas. The goal, the third goal, Doucoure's goal, it's actually a really, really lovely chipped ball into the box, and obviously Jack Harrison gets on the end of it with a header, it's blocked and Doucoure puts it in, but that quality of ball is exactly what we have been missing in this team, in the few weeks that Dwight McNeil is... Obviously, he's had this injury and then he's come back and he's trying to build his fitness up, he's trying to build his sharpness up, and I think in the last few weeks we've seen Dwight sort of getting there, but still seemingly and quite obviously not at that level that he was at towards the back end of last season in terms of his sharpness or his fitness, and that's understandable because of his injury, whereas yesterday I think we really started to see him back to that level that he was at the end of last season, and I thought he was fantastic yesterday. As I said, again, he had a couple of shots that were dragged wide that maybe on another day go into the back of the net, but I thought his overall play was fantastic. His battling, his working hard, he was throwing himself in front of everything, and his final ball was good as well. So yeah, I was really, really impressed with Dwight McNeil yesterday, I was. Amadou Onana then, what a surprise. You put Amadou Onana in a midfield too, which is positive and which is forward thinking and which is very sort of proactive, as opposed to a reactive midfield with too many players in there that have got too many different jobs, and all of a sudden he actually looks like he's comfortable in there. I'm going to give him a 7.5. Again, I don't think he was as involved as maybe we would like him to be, but I think this was his best game for a while, certainly since probably that Brentford game or Villa, and again, shockingly, Villa, he was in the midfield too as well. So yeah, again, I just thought he looked so comfortable defensively. His slide challenges were really good. He was winning the ball back, he was battling. A couple of moments towards the end of the game where I think he looked tired, and therefore I think his level started to drop a little bit. He wasn't running as much, he wasn't tracking down as much, he wasn't he ultimately looked shattered, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. He looked knackered and he looked like he needed to come off, but that was because he'd worked so hard throughout the rest of the game, and yeah, I thought that midfield two yesterday were really, really, really strong, and as I said in the preview, listen, I like Idrissa Gana Gueye, and I think Idrissa Gana Gueye is really, really good at what he's good at. He's not so good at the other things. He's not so good at shooting. He's not so good at forward play, but he's really good at nicking the ball back and defending and regaining possession. And there is a need for that in this Everton team, without a shadow of a doubt. There is a need for a player that does that. But there's a need for that in certain games. There's a need for that against the top teams at Goodison. There's maybe a need for that away from home in games that we don't expect to, we're not particularly favoured to go out and win. I don't think there's a need for that at Goodison against teams that you expect Everton to turn up and beat. I don't think there was a need for that in the Luton game. And I'm not saying he was bad, by the way. And I'm not saying, he shouldn't have been there, because ironically, we performed worse when he'd come off at half time. But I don't think there's a need to have Idrissa Gana Gueye as a defensive midfielder, Onana as a bit more of a defensive midfielder, and then try and push James Garner in the team as well. There's 4 central midfielders there, and there is no way for me that Sean Dyche can play them all at once. There's just no way. And when we're playing teams that you sort of look at, no disrespect to Bournemouth, but you look at and you think, we should be beating these today. We've got, we've on paper got a better squad. We should be getting at these and at Goodison and getting 3 points. I don't think there's much need for Garner. And I think Onana and James Garner were fantastic yesterday. On to James Garner then. I'm going to give him a 9. Again, I thought his work rate was absolutely fantastic. His goal is brilliant. It's really well won back in the midfield. Obviously, the Bournemouth defender ends up slipping, but we're on it like that. He gets himself some space. He finds himself an opportunity and he passes it comfortably into the back of the net. Some people will say, oh, well, it was close to the goalkeeper. Maybe Bournemouth fans would say the goalkeeper should do better there. I don't know. And to be honest, I don't particularly care either because I'm not really bothered how the Bournemouth fans feel about it. It was a really nice finish, really well worked. And then throughout the rest of the game, I thought he was really good. He was everywhere. He was battling. He was putting himself about. And, there wasn't much for Bournemouth in terms of them going forward and creating much. But every time they did have a sniff of an attack or a sniff of a counter-attack, James Garner was there to shut it down really, really quickly. And I thought he was really good yesterday. Not only his goal, I thought his overall performance was fantastic. Jack Harrison then obviously got his first Everton goal in his full debut at Goodison, his first full game at Goodison Park. I'm going to give him an 8 as well. I thought, in fact, no, I'm going to give him a 9 because I think that's only fair. I thought he was excellent. I thought he was absolutely excellent yesterday. Even taking away the goal, his forward play is something that we just don't seem to have in this team. He's got confidence, he's quick, he's not afraid to try and beat a man. And don't get me wrong, he doesn't always beat the player, he doesn't always get beyond the player, he's not always successful, but he's not afraid to do it. And that's what we've been missing in this squad for so long. We've been missing a player that just gets their head down and goes, do you know what, I'm just going to take you on, I'm going to go past you here. Because sometimes that won't come off. Sometimes they'll lose the ball or it'll be defended and you might go, oh, on to the next one. But the last thing we needed was another winger that was terrified of taking a player on, terrified to go beyond the player, always just got the ball and went backwards and looked for the easy option. Jack isn't that. Jack will go, try and take a player on. If it doesn't work, you get the ball back next time and he'll try and do it again. And I thought you could see his work rate and his efforts were really showing yesterday. And I thought his desire to win the ball back at times was top notch. I thought his desire to get involved, to run round, to keep battling. It all. I think there was a lot of performances yesterday, whether it be James Garner, whether it be Dwight McNeil, whether it be Jack Harrison. I thought there was a lot of players in there that anytime we didn't have the ball were like that quick to try and win it back, getting at players, pressuring the Bournemouth side. And I thought Jack was absolutely fantastic about that. Plus, his goal is just... It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's unbelievable. I said it yesterday, I'll say it again. I do think the referee deserves a little bit of credit for this. He shouldn't, because it's never a foul, so we shouldn't even have to say this. But I 1000% believe that the majority of Premier League referees would have shit themselves when the goalkeeper went down and would have blown the whistle. He didn't. He let it go, rightly so, because it was his own defender that knocked him down. And to hit that on the volley... that split second to make that decision and to hit it with such precision, such accuracy, the right weight, the right power, the right lift, the right dip. It was all just fantastic. And then to come off the bar, what a way to score your first Everton goal. And he had another couple of moments where a ball fell to him from, coming out from a corner and he was on the edge of the box or from a cross. And often you'll see players line up to hit that and it'll go in row's head or it'll be 3 miles away from the, the goal. He hit a couple of them and they were blocked or they were defended, but they were going goal-bound. His accuracy on them first-time shots is really, really impressive, and that's something that will come in handy, definitely, over the course of the season. Abdoulaye Doucoure, then I'm going to give him an 8.5. Again, obviously got his goal. In fact, no, I'm going to give him an 8. I think he played well. I think he worked hard. I think he battled. I think he put himself about. He got his goal, which ultimately is the type of goal you want Abdoulaye Doucoure to be scored, and he is the midfielder that plays behind the striker, which is fine. So you only need 2 midfielders behind him. And in games like this, as I said, I personally don't think you need Garner Gay. And I don't think Dyche can afford to just sort of force James Garner into this team in any position just to get him in there. No, if James Garner should be in this team, and he should be, by the way, every week, he's in there as a central midfielder. There's no need for the Garner Gay to be in this team every week. Even Onana, you could make the argument for Onana coming out, but James Garner, if we're all in agreement that he should be in this Everton team every week, he's in there as a centre midfielder. Anyway, Doucoure was more in front, and his goal was exactly what you expect from a player that plays in that position. You know, good ball comes in from McNeil. Harrison's header's obviously blocked, but Doucoure's there for the the rebound, and that's what we want to see. That's what I want from Abdoulaye. I want him to be there for when, you know, opportunities like that arise where a player's hit the bar or a shot's being saved, and he's there for the rebound straight away. I don't think he was massively involved other than that. He worked hard, he battled, he put himself about as he always does. But yeah, a good enough performance. And then Dominic Calvert-Lewin, do you know what? I'm going to give Dom an 8. I thought he was fantastic yesterday. I really, really, really did. I thought he was brilliant. And as I said about Dwight McNeil, I think Dwight McNeil was a goal away from a 10 out of 10 performance. I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin was a goal away from a 15 out of 10 performance. I really do. I thought he was excellent yesterday. Absolutely excellent. His hold-up play was brilliant every time the ball comes to him. Even when it comes to him in you know, like when the ball was lumped up to him and he had a lot of work to do, he brought it down, he held it, he brought other people into play, he used his body. He didn't have much opportunities. He only had a couple of sort of half chances, obviously at the bar with the header. But he sort of only had a couple of other half chances, which, you know, weren't particularly created well. He was just lumped up and he had to make something out of it. And he even did really well with them to get them down and get a shot off. I thought he was excellent. And, you know, some people just don't see it with Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But I think if you had Dominic Calvert-Lewin guaranteed to be fit every week for 38 games, he'd be one of the best centre-forwards in the league. I really, really do. His size, his physicality. But you can be a big fella. You can be a 6'4" centre-forward. Doesn't mean that you're necessarily a good footballer. You need to know how to use that size. You need to know how to use that physicality. And Dom knows how to do it absolutely brilliantly. And as I said, this is another example of a game of football where Dominic Calvert-Lewin hasn't scored in, yet he could have comfortably got man of the match yesterday. And that shows you the traits of a really, really good striker. You know, some strikers, you know, if they're not scoring a goal, they're pretty anonymous in games and they're not really doing much. Dom isn't. Dom takes defenders out of the games for other players to get goals and for other players to create chances just by being a nuisance and putting himself about. And I thought he was excellent yesterday. On to the bench then, Nathan Patterson. I'm going to give him a 6.5. Thought he'd come on, done well, put himself about, defended really well, lively. For me, should be in the team week in, week out. I've said that before. Beto, I'll give him a 5.5. He come on and put himself about, didn't he? Ran around, worked. You know, again, had a little bit of a go, but ultimately nothing came from him. And then I'm going to give Yusuf Chimiti a 5 as well. Similarly, come on, late on in the game, you know, pace is a little bit slowing down now. Players are starting to get tired. Not a lot to do. Didn't really do much in the game, but, you know, come on, ran round and put himself about. So there you go. That's the player ratings. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you haven't checked out the instant match reaction, please do so. If you are new to the channel, please do subscribe. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it as well. That would mean a huge amount to me. And before anybody comments, yes, I know me hair's in a hairband. I know that. It's because it's absolutely everywhere at the moment, because it's in between that stage of needing cutting, but I want to grow it out. But now it's in that middle stage of just looking shite every day. That just threw it in the headband. So before you comment, are you trying to be Jack Grealish? Can't watch the headband. It's either a headband or that. So, yeah, deal with it. Up the fucking toffees. Get in. If you've enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you after.